Hello and welcome to the Man On podcast. Thank you for tuning in to the podcast. We're going to be interviewing a number of guests through the journey of doing this. We're going to be focusing on a lot of your key themes. For those that don't know, Man On Inverclyde is a mental health and wellbeing and suicide prevention charity based in Greenock. So a lot of the themes that we might be talking about might be triggering for some people. And we just want to put a wee disclaimer out at the start. If you are triggered by any of the content of some of your discussions, then please get in touch with us. You can get in touch with us through social media at Man On Inverclyde, but also as well you can get in contact with us through email address support@manoninverclyde.com, and we can guide you to what would be the best sort of contact for yourself to do that. So yeah, thank you for tuning in. Hope you enjoy the podcast. Back to another episode of the Man On podcast. We're delighted to be back through in Wishaw at the G4 Claim Studio, and I'm delighted today to be joined by a number of our staff members to celebrate 4 years of Man On Inverclyde. So today's episode is featuring around that journey, and we'll be talking about things ranging from the very starting point and what that looked like all the way through to today's work that we're doing across the community and beyond. And I thought what better way to do that than get the people that's been involved at various stages in the journey. So cheers for coming on, guys. I appreciate you coming up, car sharing up here the other day to come up and record this and spend a bit of time reflecting on our journey. But introduce yourselves first. Come to yourself.
So I'm Mark. I'm a wellbeing worker for a young person service. Obviously I came to Man On, I support the adults, but I made the transition over in the summer, so a lot of my work now is based within the schools during the week and then supporting the young people in the centre after it.
Cool. Yourself, Sam?
So my name's Sam. I'm a lead practitioner for the adult services. So what I do on a daily basis is just make sure the guys are in, everybody's good, their mental health and wellbeing supported, and make sure the guys' mental health and wellbeing, the staff and volunteers are good as well.
Yourself, Brian?
I'm Brian. I'm a lead wellbeing worker for the young person service in Inverclyde. Look after kind of young people between 15 and 19 service, and been with Man On for the start, volunteering and full time for about a year and a half now.
Brilliant, cheers. So thanks very much for coming in. As we've touched on here, we've got representation from all the services that we have, including our Talk On service, which Sam represents for our women, and Inverclyde. So we've got representation there across each, which is important. But I'll start back at your own journeys for the start with Man On. The one thing that yous have got in common is that yous were all volunteers. So tell me a wee bit, Sam, firstly for yourself, a wee bit about your volunteer journey. What made you want to? Because volunteering for me is an interesting sort of thing that if you're watching the podcast and you've not done that before, done a bit of volunteering for an organisation, it's such a powerful thing, but you're also giving up your time, your free time to go and do that. So what made you want to do that, Sam? And also why Man On?
For me, I took a massive dip in 2018 where I couldn't sort of get my head above the surface. Wasn't going to work, wasn't engaging much with my kids, wasn't engaging much with my family. There was something wrong, and it was all stemming from sort of past experience of losing pals to suicide. So I went on a wee journey of sort of trying to understand the impact on suicide and what it has in a sort of community, and do a wee journey as well with myself and sort of self-reflect on my experiences and how it's made me feel and how I can make that better for myself, but not just myself, how I can make that better for other people. I've done a couple of counselling courses, and then I was like, I think this might be something where I've got more an interest in than just, reflecting back on me and my experiences. Like, this could be, something I could turn into a career. At that point, when I was going through one of my counselling courses, somebody says to us, there's a guy that started a thing called Man On, and it's in a wee community centre up in Branchton, and you should give them a wee message. And that was round about the April time, and I gave you a wee message and stuff, and then came in from there. We had a wee chat, and then I came in to take the peer support. Never thought it would be, I thought I would volunteer and it would be a really good experience for me to then take on and sort of help me develop as a worker in this sort of field. But I never thought it would sort of grow the way it did. It was a wee bit manic. It was wild, it was good. The guys that were getting supported were amazing, and the support we were giving them was amazing, and then it grew arms and legs, and it got to a stage where, you know, we were talking like, this is going to kick off, this has got real potential to be something, and what that looked like. So chucked my 2 jobs once we got a bit of funding and took a leap and decided to make an actual career on it, and, you know, and invest in it, you know, the way that sort of yourselves like invested in me to take sort of projects forward and help build stuff and help create what we've got running and build the foundations to what's still there now, like 4 years later. So for going for a volunteer to take like peer support to leading the adult services has been a strange experience for me. A really good one, a hard one, challenging at times, but really, really good experience, and something that I'll never forget. Something that's always, when I can look back, say 20, 30 years time, and, you know, people say, what did you do with your life and stuff, like all my stuff past like military and all the other stuff, you know, I was always chasing money up in the Shetlands, working out in Kuwait, you know, I was doing all this kind of stuff, chasing money. But I'll always get back to this experience and say, this is a part of my life that really, really changed for the better. Out with my kids, of course.
Aye, of course. And that comes for that initial step as volunteering. And I remember getting the message into the Facebook Messenger inbox actually from yourself. And I went on a wee bit of a recruitment drive, because for me, like, obviously I've shared the story of starting up Man On, but founding it, I was a volunteer for, you know, a lot of that period of time. I wasn't the first person to take a wage in the charity either. I waited until it was the right time for me to potentially do that, knowing that I might never have done it. But certainly for me, that foundation bit was manic. You know, it was like the startup bit was crazy around actually trying to work out, what's this going to look like? What does it feel like? Where does it come for your time? What about yourself, Matt? I'll come to you, because obviously your volunteering bit came, and I think this is important to actually talk about volunteering in a sense too, where you get involved, step back and come back into the fold. So what's your journey been like with it?
Well, initially, obviously me and you have been pals, wasn't it? And
sadly
I was just waiting on a birth for my daughter, so I was off my own job at the time, and that was a Tuesday night and a Wednesday night. We used to go on and do
Tuesday, I think it's always been a Tuesday. Zoom calls,
which was quite good. But what I realised at that time, even though that I couldn't experience doing it, but even though we were talking to guys and supporting them, it made us feel so good ourselves. And I always remember you kind of saying to me when I came off, like, you're doing well. But obviously, with birth of my daughter and my job at that time too, I couldn't fit it all in. Do you know what I mean? So it's probably a pause, wasn't it, for maybe 6 months or so, and obviously still speaking to you, but I kind of referred a few guys that I know to come down and see you, and you kept giving a conversation with me, didn't you? Like, you could be a difference in here, get down, one, just do it. But obviously, like, so we work in newborn, it was different, and then it was the day I came down and met yourself and Peter, wasn't it? And I have not really looked back since then, do you know what I mean? I think on that too, initially what I done as well was I used to rotate it for going to football to peer support, but like I said there too with Zoom calls, I felt as if with peer support I was making an impact with the guys that were coming through my door, so I kind of found my place in there rather than the football. And it wasn't long after that it kind of grew into a 4-hour contract, and obviously still doing different bits with charity within it, and it's really got a snowball for myself into it. But
definitely, and it has. It's been a journey in that sense, and I think that's important as well to discuss. That, you know, it's important to go on a professional journey in terms of going and getting, you know, the qualifications that's required, and I know you're all doing that in various points. Sam, you're obviously at uni at the minute. You're obviously going through multiple qualifications at the one time, and learning it as you go. But that sort of ability or skill you've got as a human being, as a person, is massive, and I think that's what's connected with people so much. So for people that are even maybe listening to this, who are maybe not been working in like the likes of social care and stuff like that in the past, this could be a career for you. Like, I've spoken about the different places that you worked in. A lot of the stuff's you know, you can transfer the stuff over. Obviously, you know, your experience in the armed forces as well, Sam, you know, that kind of crisis level stuff, you know, a lot of that's transferable, and you've noticed that. What about yourself, Brian? So your journey obviously came involved volunteer, then again maybe a wee step aside to focus on other career stuff, and then full circle back involved in helping spearhead the young person service. But your career's been a bit different though to obviously Sam and Mark's, where you've been working in this world for a long time. But what's your journey been up to now?
No, I remember it really well, because going back to when I was just doing the jobs, I was around 25, I kind of really tried to figure out what my purpose was and who I was and stuff, and I always wanted to just help people. And I first started off like about 25, 27 years ago, helping people with learning difficulties, went into the kind of youth justice, went into the criminal justice side of things. But in terms of man on, I remember it really well, sitting on the couch one night, and it was the Facebook thing you mentioned, you put something out, you know, just looking for volunteers, and my kids were getting a bit older, and I thought, I've got a spare few hours a month or whatever. And again, it was a relationship with yourself, Chris, because I'd worked with you in the past and knew you were a good guy and all that. And
thanks very much.
No, I knew you were caring, and you were kind of passionate about what you wanted to do. So I remember saying to the wife at the time, you know, I could do that. I could actually do a few hours and help out. And the actual name caught my eye as well. It was Man On, which being a football kind of man all my life, you know, I thought that'd be good. So I kind of looked at it and I thought, that's for me, you know. And I remember going down a couple of times, and for me it was genuine. It was people who were passionate about what they were doing, and it was real, you know. And one of the best experiences I had was just going in and playing kind of men at pool and talking, but everybody was kind of, the guard was down, you know, the stigma was gone about mental health. It was during the lockdown, and everybody was just dead open about their feelings, and something I'd never kind of really, you know, experienced before, you know, being from kind of west of Scotland type of kind of thing. And also went to a peer support group where Sam was there, and it was one of the best things I'd ever kind of experienced in terms of helping people. And I actually brought a young person along that night who I think came in, thought, this will be no good, this. And the boy left, and he said to me, you know, I'm so glad I came here. And that opened my eyes. I was like, this isn't just a kind of, I didn't know how far Man On would go from there, but obviously it's kind of went, you know, right up the scale to the point where we've got, sitting here today, people for kind of adult services, women's services, Mark, yourself, Chris, and you know, I just, at that point, again, I was working in criminal justice at the time, but I always had my eye on Man On, and I always thought, I want to work with people who are passionate as these guys, and that's what I've seen for the last 4 years, just powerful stuff. And I don't think it's any folk that we've got to where we've got because of who we've got employed in the kind of charity. And it's just, I think it's a privilege just to be here. I honestly do. I think, you know, a lot of the jobs I did in the past, it was you're ticking boxes, you're kind of working against systems and stuff like that, procedures. But I think we'll get the right people in place, and I seen that 4 years ago. And you know, from a volunteer point of view, I thought that's where I want to be. And luckily enough, you know, you've seen the potential in us, Chris, and you took us on. So I'm just enjoying every minute of it, and I hope it continues.
Brilliant. And you've all done great in that journey, and obviously today's a opportunity to celebrate that. One of the other things that we've all got in common is that we're obviously from Inverclyde, so we're all from, I think we're all from Greenock actually, aren't we? None of us out with, but which, in terms of that, because I think that's a big part of being a local charity, and don't get me wrong, if people from it with the tune wanted to engage with us and stuff, which we have supported people from it with Inverclyde, and we've also had people who have engaged with us from different roles and stuff that's maybe not connected in Inverclyde. But come to yourself, Mark, about like, what do you think's the importance of that, and also what sort of shaped you in terms of being, well, you were a Braeside boy, weren't you? So out with your party years and stuff like that? Like, what's all your stuff that's shaped you to kind of get into this position?
I think we had to, like, initially, like, say, the age we're at, we know a lot of boys that are struggling, but impacted with suicide ourselves, with pals or family members. So that's a bit of passion that I wanted to get into with. Also, we've been, like, in the community as well too. How many members have we known have came through the doors because they know one of us? Do you know what I mean? And we know that we're approachable. And also, there's been plenty of boys that I know have come down, but it doesn't mean that I've got to see them to support them. Mm-hmm. To pass it on to Sam. But I think for the community, because kind of obviously different kind of pockets that people will know. So I think that's good to get people through the door as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think having your ear to the community, I think that's part of it as well, around knowing what's going on in the community. Sadly, we have lost, young men, older men, females in our community to suicide, and we have that awareness when it happens. But I think having that visibility in the community that you're from is important. What about yourself, Sam? So your upbringing, how has that sort of, I suppose, shaped you? And also as well, even we touched on it, but your experiences in the armed forces and stuff, and shaped how you've actually been here.
I think just being a local guy within your community, somebody that knows your face, somebody that knows your family members, somebody that knows your mates, it's very relatable. I think we're in most of the schemes in Inverclyde, like most days, or volunteers, or staff. So we're there, we're in the heart of the community, and I think that's really important to emphasise that. Like, I think it's so massive that people know that we're not coming to work from Edinburgh, Glasgow, where there's no sense in our community where we don't know the people within it. We know the people within it. Most of the people that we deal with, we know on some basis, at least one is there. So I think that's really important. We can get a gauge of where they're at, where they've been, and how we can support them as well. I think that's really important. But like for myself, like growing up, I grew up in Kenilworth, and then my mum said, it's getting a wee bit rougher in here, so mum will move you to Larkfield where it was a wee bit rougher, So I don't know the logic there. I think it was character building. I think that was the main thing for my mum when we were growing up, but being in Kenilworth, it was you grow up fast, but there was a real sense of community in Kenilworth. People did leave their doors open. My mum was the scheme mom for a while, like she made sure all the kids were alright, all the mums were in the house, and everybody knew everybody, and it was really good. And through that, I've also seen people that I've not seen in 20, 30 years that have come in and says, I remember you when you were there, I remember your mum and stuff like that, and they've come through the door and they've got that support. So I think that's really important. Same as Larkfield as well. I was never a violent guy, but I was always into doing random stuff and bit of a boy when I was younger. But you get good communication skills through all that, I feel. Like you're constantly talking to people, you're constantly engaged. I think being in the schemes, growing up, having that sense of community gives you communication skills that you need to talk to people, and then it's up to you and your character to build on that. Especially when I joined the military as well. Some great times in the military, some of the guys you'll never forget, but also some real challenging times as well. You're losing people. I've lost pals through suicide that were in the military, so it shapes you into a certain way, and it sort of moulds you into either being very a defeatist, or making those negatives, creating a positive out of those negatives. And and a lot of times where people say, like, how are you able to create a positive out of so many negatives? Well, all my experiences that have been negative have shaped me into doing the job that I'm doing just now. That's a massive positive for the guys that walk through the door, that are at crisis point, the females as well, that are feeling suicidal, that have got plans. They're saying, they're coming to the door and they're saying, I was going to kill myself before I come in here. That's massive. And then you help them through that. You help them through the experiences that you've got. You help them through with the person that you've been able to create for yourself through the experiences that you've had. And I think it's really important, like being in those environments, having that sort of structure when you were younger, to create a person that you're today, I think is massive.
You know, like how we are able to be ourselves. Obviously, we're very highly led by boundaries, and we manage conflicts of interest if we know people well, but certainly being able to use our life experiences, but also our professional knowledge and our understanding of, theories about supporting people and our understanding of suicide prevention strategies and how to implement them and stuff. You combine all that, but you be who you are as a real human being, and you can bring yourself to work in Manon, I feel, because that's the magic. The magic is actually the connections and touching on. You touched on a few areas in Greenock there. So I got brought up in ABC High Flats. Loved it, even though everybody, when you told them, well, they were wild, they were wild, right? There was some people, I was in school, we were putting elbows, they weren't even allowed to come up to my house, you know what I mean? Up at High Flats, but like, it was, when you reflect back, I remember being a wee guy and finding a big bag of needles in a high flat, used needles. So when you think back, there probably was hunters in that, but for me it was just
good sense of community.
For me it was like always playing football, always engaging with the other people that was there. I had hunters of pals, everybody was, but there was obviously hidden traumas there and hidden poverties and stuff like that. And then I think we moved to Branston, but we moved to a good bit of Branny, right? There was two bits, there was a bad and a good bit, but no, we moved.
That's an absolute posh bit.
We moved to a posh bit of Branny, which was about 5 steps away from the rest of it, but no, we moved to Branston, and again, great kind of time there in terms of living up with Branny and stuff. And then I decided to sort of hang about in Larkfield, so that was where I hung about in my kind of teenage years and stuff, and that allows me, I think, because of the stuff maybe I get engaged with, people that I hung about with and stuff like that, some of which I'm still in contact with today, some of which sadly no ways anymore, but those experiences for me directly shaped me to become the worker that I ended up in when I started working with young people on the edges of care, edges of youth justice, edges of everything that I could connect with because of my experiences. So for me, that's a massive part of what we do, and I know for a fact that's why we've had the vast numbers of people that's come through our doors, because again it's a relational aspect in a community that people engage with. Now, you're for a different part, obviously. Greenock, you never stop talking about it, so do you want to tell everybody where you're from, Brian? Which is, we've actually had another person for your community on a podcast already, so with Nicky, but
well, that's getting the good people in now. That's what you need to do. East End, Gibbs Hill, but I was a bit like you, Chris. Come from Gibbs Hill, mentioned it a few times, but a negative side of it was, and you mention the name now, it's like, oh, that must have been tough, but honestly it was a positive for me, because what I seen was a sense of community, sense of kind of family values, moral values, everything was ingrained in that kind of thing, a wee bit like you said, the mum, everybody, you couldn't step out of line in Gibbs Hill because everybody was out their windows and everybody's out kind of keeping an eye on each other and policing themselves, if you like, but within that there was a strong family kind of value, a strong community base, which, without sounding cliche, I really do think we've brought that into Manon. It's definitely there, and that's ingrained in every one of us. We can look on our past, because for me it was a strength and a positive. I don't look in my past and go, oh, poor me, I really struggled, because I didn't, because my dad was a hard-working man, my mum, she was just a kind of rock with the family, and I've still got that now, and again, having did the jobs I did over the years, building up the skills, the qualifications, and I relate it to when somebody comes into our centre. I'm very big on when anybody comes in the centre, they're analysing us and they're kind of actually looking to see if we're genuine, we're able to make a connection with them. So I think it's good that we're from this area and that, but just you as an individual, if you're able to connect with human beings and build a relationship with them, then we build up a bit of trust, then that kind of gives you a wee bit of a platform to kind of get to know each other a bit better, and that way people will trust us and they'll kind of maybe be able to take their fake mask off and talk about mental
and relax and
relax in your company. And
I think that's really important. Like, I think if you just sort of look at it and say, all you need to do to create a man on is just get a group of people for that area and just put them together, it's not as easy as that. It's important, but I also think it needs to be the right people, the right fit. You need to get the blend between, and I think when we talk about lived experience, I do quite a lot of conversations around lived experience, and I think it's really important that people are in a good enough place to be in those spaces and have maybe focused on what a lived experience is and made sense of it, because you just touched on it there, Sam, and we'll come on to talk it a wee bit more. Like, the work that we do with people can be heavy. It can be heavy. We are, the safety net, I think, in the Inverclyde community for people that have fell through the gaps of mental health provision, of maybe gaps that are maybe there for social work because they're so stretched and pressed, gaps that are there for maybe CAMs who are stretched and pressed as well, and gaps for Crown House, for example, where there's a lot of pressure and stress around these environments, a lot of waiting lists, a lot of, people having to kind of wait for support and stuff like that, which is, it's not an individual's decision, that it's obviously the system that's there, but we're capturing all these people. So when you're doing that and you're the face of it in the community, and you're in the community and you're walking about, it can take its toll. So for me, it's just about make sure you get the right blend of the people right, and that they're in the right place to do this type of job, because it is, we're dealing with people who are frustrated because they've been past their own systems, they're frustrated because they've been let down, they're already coming in with their guard up because they think you're just going to let them down like what they've had in other experiences. So in a way, we're actually unpicking a lot of the stuff that's been done to people and trying to build that up.
Skills and then building relationships, isn't it?
Definitely, relationships are huge.
It's really important as well that that we recognise that within each other, because the guys that are coming through the door, and the young people, and the females from the female service, they will tell you if you're not the right fit. They will tell you if if you're bluffing your case. Because they spot it, because they've seen it. Mm-hmm. And then you just become another part of a service that is not catering to their needs, and I think that's where we are really different in that aspect. And
I think as well, we listen to people and we change things. We're not tokenistic. We don't just listen to people and then we don't do anything about it. We make things around in terms of we change things around for what's there. One of the things that I think makes us unique is our membership model. Now, we had a team meeting yesterday, we just sort of recapped a lot of that stuff, so it's not a quiz or a test, but you need to get it right. But our membership model, so for me, that was when I started this, I wanted to create an environment that moved away from language like service users, and changed the perception of what somebody that was coming into your building for a bit of support would be, and the membership thing for me was really, really important that we got that right. So anybody that comes in for support for us becomes a member of our charity, and what we mean by that is we don't mean they're a member and they get voting rights at AGMs and stuff like that, because obviously that's part of charitable membership as well, but they just become a membership as part of your member body, where they'll get support and they'll be able to access a lot of different things. Obviously then it's down to them whatever they access in terms of the services that's there. But just in terms of that transition from maybe being a service user, or what other people have said to us in terms of a number, to actually being a member and being part of something. Come to you, Sam, obviously, because you've probably dealt with most of the adult members, I feel like. Is that transition important for people to have more of a sense of connection and belonging into the work that we do?
It's so important. There's nothing that we do at Man On, and I mean nothing, without the say-so of the people that we're supporting. Co-production is massive. We don't put stuff in place. You go to different organisations and they've got a mould and they've got a model, but sometimes you see that mould and you see that model and it's not been created with the people that they're supposed to be supporting. It's been created by people up here. So that means that if it's been created by people up here and they're supporting people down here, there's that massive gap. There's a massive gap where there's a lack of communication in what's actually needed. So from the off-go, when you started this, and when I came in, it was massive on. I remember having a conversation with a lot of guys that were coming through the door, and it was actually one of the peer support nights we had, and it was really busy. I think it was 15 people in Dellenburn Street that night. And I asked them, I says, what is your thoughts on the term service user? you know, and it was about 2 hours of negative experiences of those words. We had some guys that were battling addiction. We had people that come through who were sexually and physically abused, and every place they went to, they were classed as a user. The addiction and the abuse one was really a big one for me, because, you know, people call them users, especially with abuse as well. They were used. You know, they were used, they were abused by people, some people that had a bit of clout and authority. So, like, for me, it was like, how do we change that? How do we make it where we are creating something that is different? And we've all spoke about it, like, we need to make change. Like, change is massive for the people within a community. So becoming a member isn't just about, you know, like, changing that name. It's what it actually means to that person. You know, what does member mean? And when we ask them, what does it feel like to be part of this community, a member of this community, where you've got a say in how your support is led? You know, it's huge, and that's where we're different from a lot of places. You know, it's creating that change, but not just saying we're creating changes, it's making it changes.
And I think there's a lot of focus around co-production just now, and maybe there's a bit of confusion about what it means, but certainly for me it's about people actively participating in things that matter to them and making decisions along with us. It's not just them telling us and, you know, us not having a role within that. It's it's joint. But I think if you really do that and you listen to people and you make changes and you're ready to kind of take accountability when it's not worked, or ready to modify what you're doing, and you put the preciousness and the egos and stuff to the side and actually listen to the community, the magic of what happens is you've got 4 years in, you've got 700 people plus supported, you've connected with people across the community, whether it's the rural parts or the actual town centre, you're engaging people in their communities. We've generated, you know, a lot of income, which is amazing. A lot of that's came from the community though, and that's because they've built up that trust base, because they know when they've done that, we've then supported that. We've engaged with young people in education, we've engaged with young people in further education, we're in schools, you know. So when you genuinely listen to the community and you actually put things in place and be willing and ready to say, cool, that's fine, let's change that, it's not working, you know, that's not what you're looking for, let's develop a crisis support model where the doors just open between 10 o'clock and 8 o'clock every Monday, because Monday's the day that people need it, you know, build it and they're going to listen and they're going to come. So for me, when you truly do co-production and it's not tokenistic and it's not, you know, for example, co-production that's been developed and then it's presented to somebody to say, oh, by the way, that's what we're going to do, does that look all right? That's not co-production. So I think there's a bit in that. In terms of the membership model, Brian, in terms of the young people that we're obviously supporting, some of the young people that have fed back to us and they've gave us permission to share their words as opposed to sharing who they are, nothing identifiable, but some of it is like, it feels like the family that you would have picked. You know, like if you could have picked a family, then it would be not just us in terms of staff and volunteers, but actually the other young people that supported them. And some of them have went on to talk about, you know, if it wasn't for Man On, I wouldn't be here. I was in limbo between, you know, youth and adult services. I felt like I wasn't, you know, getting listened to, and I was just about to go into an adult service, but actually I was still dealing with a lot of the stuff for the pandemic and felt that I needed more support and help. In terms of that membership model, that's the kind of things that they're feeding back to us. But how important do you think it is to even keep young people involved in that and get them involved in that process, as opposed to maybe treating them, you know, is different because they're younger, but actually trying to respect their rights as their children's rights in terms of the UNCLC. How important is all this stuff for you in terms of leading your service?
No, that's one of the reasons I took the job on, because, you know, being a kind of teenager myself, you know, way back then, I didn't feel listened to, I didn't feel as if I had a voice, struggling with identity and stuff like that, and having worked in kind of youth justice for a long time, that was a lot of the challenges we had, where, you know, the feedback and the co-production we did back in the day was, you know, I don't feel listened to, I've not got a voice. And I've actually seen how powerful it is when you actually say to a young person, I'm going to help you with this, I'm going to support you with this, and I'm going to follow this through, to they actually following it through a bit. And the rewards you get with that, where they actually go, I've heard all my life that people are going to help me and they're going to do this, and you know, going back to other agencies and services, a lot of young people we support have been through that, and they've come to us and they've come into our building and went, you actually do what you say you're going to do, and you didn't just listen to me and write it down on a bit of paper. You sat with me, we co-produced stuff, I gave you suggestions and you followed it through. You know, they've worked alongside us, so again, just going back to that, it's one of the most rewarding parts of my job, when a young person actually, you can tell with the body language, everything, when we get the kind of evaluation forms and stuff where they say, do you know what, you actually did what you said you were going to do, and you are genuine, you're passionate, and I feel listened to. And one of the things with the young people, just that you said, Sam, as well, the word member, they feel valued, you know, it just makes you feel valued, as opposed to a service user or someone that's very kind of robotic, and that's, we don't sit and we're not robots, and we actually do build a relationship with these young people. But I just kind of going back to that, the kind of following stuff through that. One of the things with the young person service, I feel teenagers, just what you said, Sam, will actually tell you if you're bluffing or you're genuine or you're actually genuinely want to help them. And one of the things, especially myself and Mark, when we talk about the young people we support come every single week, and that tells us a lot. Some of the engagement is very high, some of it's not as much, you know, because teenagers, everybody's individual and anxiety, stress, but what we find is, you know, our evaluations is when these young people come back week in, week out, they're telling us something, that we're listening to them. So, you know, that's what's so rewarding for me, Chris.
And I think one of the things that we've been trying to foster from day one is allowing people to feel a sense of connection and belonging in their community, allowing that to happen, because there is a bit of a disconnect at times in the community. There is people who feel that belonging's not there, and I think that membership model allows you to feel part of something. Come to yourself, Mark, in terms of duration of time that we support people, just to give people a wee bit of insight into that. You know, a lot of the mental health provision, if you like, is sort of centred around, you know, X amount of sessions, and, you know, say you get 6 sessions or you get a block of therapy or whatever, and, you know, we have obviously got external therapists who engage with our members if needed. What in terms of our viewpoint, in terms of working with people, is important to share, do you think, in terms of that longer piece of work, in terms of the relationship?
Like the service that you've set up as well, it's all person-centred and individual, isn't it? So when you might get somebody that comes in who 6 to 8 weeks, you see a difference in their well-being, but also too with that day, they know once they do the membership agreement form, doors never shut at one. What I did just to see today, Sam, was when I worked in the adult service, was you'd maybe see a member constantly, wouldn't you, for maybe a few weeks, a few months, and then you wouldn't see them. And again, we know what life's like. There's going to be plenty of dips coming, and then they can come back in, and it could be someone just kind of accessing through peer support. So I think that's vital to that they know that the door's always open in a sense. Get back to that day question you asked was, like I said, if we're doing like one of the ones, either based at a school or a centre, it doesn't have to be 6 weeks, because sometimes as well it's vital that these people have been shut off for so long, so how much are you going to unfold within 6 weeks?
Aye.
That's maybe just when the connection is. So
Ready.
as a team, obviously, communicate that, and then we'll take it as it comes.
I think a lot, if you look at trauma-informed practice and you look at the principles of trauma-informed care, you know, the first phases of that is about safety and stabilisation. You know, and that
connection really, isn't it?
Aye, and that feeling of safety and stabilising somebody to the point where, I mean, it might just be to the point where they can actually lift their head up and look at you and have a conversation with you, because they're broke for different reasons. They've been broken by a system that's maybe failed them. They've maybe been broken by the trauma and adversity that they've experienced. So for me, I think it's really, really important, and that's why we've always went against that, in terms of there is no set time here. We've built a wellbeing plan where you've done great work with somebody, and then they'll come back in for a coffee, or they'll come back in to see how things are, or they'll just come back in to engage with their peers in the peer support sessions. And that open door policy is also another thing I think is really important as a membership. Again, I speak about it, again, waiting for a better metaphor, but it's like sort of joining a gym. You know that you can access it, when it's open, you know that you can come to, if you want to get specific support, from a PT, a one-to-one person, you can get it. If you want to go to Spin Fit, for anybody that does that, I don't know how you can do it, I've seen a few of them, but if you want to engage with that, if you want to go to fit therapy, you can. If you want to go to other things, there is a full sort of menu of stuff.
I think that's the big thing is too. We're on a different variety of services over the young persons and the adult. So like that, they can choose their own wellbeing plan in a sense. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. As we say, everybody's individuals, so we've got different kind of preferences and likes. So like that, there's never any pressure for us that they should become this and that. You can maybe guide them in a sense, but really it's up to a member themselves to where they think's best suited.
Definitely. And I think what I want to spend a wee bit of time on reflecting on is actually some of the things that's allowed us to be here. First and foremost as the members, the 700 plus people that's engaged, whether it be stuff in the community or it's in a wellbeing centre, in the wider Inverclyde public, for sort of taking the charity to its heart. It's always been something that I've been very, very proud of as the founder of the charity, that it came at the right time, I think, in the pandemic, but even speaking to family members that have lost people, and I'm still in touch with some of them, in contact with Ryan McDonald's family recently around the Greenock Juniors partnership and stuff, and got a really nice message from his brother at the weekend in terms of the paper, the article that was in the paper and stuff, just things like that. It's just sort of makes me feel really humbled actually about what we've created. So the Inverclyde public have been great. They've generated income for us, which allowed us to do the work. I think I'd want to put a wee spotlight on individual funders, and I'll come to you individually about things that have funded your roles. So I'll come to yourself, Mark, in terms of the education fund, which obviously we had to go through a procurement phase and to access that, and it allows us to go into 2 secondary schools locally. Just a quick recap, not on the job, but the importance of the work that you're doing in the schools and why it's crucial that continues.
I think for even myself, big part of Mark bringing to, I felt as if I kind of age of 15, 16 was just stuck, didn't know what kind of options. That probably took me into mid-20s when you kind of career paths in a sense. So obviously we're here for the wellbeing, but just having that kind of understanding with the ones we're supporting, that they've got options that can take control of themselves. Do you know what I mean? We can obviously guide them to places that can help their education, but also we us to share my lived experience, that so they don't get you get a trick age 15, 16, you leave school and you've got no options. Do you know what I mean? And just kind of letting them know they've got that. Also today, I think we in the schools as well, it's just kind of going back to that today, using your people skills and building relationships. It's creating a safe space for them, and that's kind of what my biggest kind of evaluation forms behind. We completed our work with young people, just that having that space that they can actually come in and they can maybe talk about maybe don't trust in their friends, or maybe some peer pressure from different bits, whereas in there obviously got a confidentiality policy, but a lot of it just gives them that wee space that they can vent their frustrations. And all the time it doesn't need to be big stuff. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So,
and it's a lot of it, as if you look at it from even an education lens, a lot of it's around social education. It's about educating them around their wellbeing through the wellbeing tool that we use, the Outcome Star. It's educating them around that, but also you're doing social education groups which look at things like healthy masculinity, trying to kind of avoid the whole toxic masculinity conversation, but replacing it with healthy masculinity. What does it look like if we're, a young boy or a man in our community, and how can we look after our wellbeing better? In turn, one of the other things that we've all got in common is we've all got daughters. So, and we're all obviously passionate about how we support women and girls. And so for us, things that are evident in our community, like gender-based violence and stuff, and trying to make it a safer community for our girls is hugely important for us. All our daughters are at different ages and stages, but certainly we've got that lived experience of being that parent who wants that community to be good. So for us, it's about educating our young boys and men to be more comfortable with who they are and be open about how they feel. And a lot of that stuff that you're doing in the schools, I think, is so vital, where it goes beyond just and there's there's absolutely lots of research and evidence out there to show you how much sitting down with a therapist works. Of course there is. Sitting with, you know, somebody like Vary who works with us, who's unbelievable at the job that she does, so valued. But there's more required than just the amazing Varys of the world, you know. So having these social education, you know, platforms for young people, particularly your young people who are not engaged with education, they're not engaged with school, or they might be in school and they're just not going to classes, or they're just lost in that bubble of 15 plus. What happens? They're at real risk, some of them, of potentially finding different pathways, and some of those pathways, similar to myself, could result in getting involved in things where you're maybe in police stations and speaking to people and stuff like that you don't want to. So it's vital for that, and a continuation from that, Brian, is Young Start, which we're funded through the National Lottery, which directly fund your post. So just a wee bit of a reflection. I know we're completing the first year evaluation of that, and we're having conversations about finishing that, but just launching a young person service in Inverclyde specifically for the ones in the community just gives a wee reflection on how important that's been, and some of the things we're starting to notice.
No, it's been invaluable, and I spoke earlier on about the reward. For me personally, I keep going back to, I've actually been given the freedom, you know, with yourselves and the National Lottery, to support young people on an individual basis who, one of the things we've noticed as well is, just what we touched on earlier on, is the robotic kind of approach to trauma-informed young people, or trauma-informed kind of practices, is you can't sit with a young person, and I've did that in the past where I've ticked boxes in a 6-week kind of course or therapy. You can't walk out the door after that and it's all singing, dancing, life sorted. I've been given the freedom to, I've worked with a couple of young people, I've worked with a young person for 12 months, which that was needed, and that was afforded, you know, to myself, and I was given the freedom to do that, whereas there was no pressure on me. And that was needed for some of the young people I support. Some of the young people I support as well are, you know, they're suffering from emotional-based school avoidance, where they can't physically get to school, you know, and that was a kind of residual stuff from the lockdown, the pandemic. And I've been able, with my colleagues, to support them in the centre, to get them to a place where they can get kind of transition back into school. And that's the kind of things that we're noticing. There's a lot of kind of stuff off the back of the pandemic, the lockdowns and stuff like that. So on an individual basis, we're noticing that there's a lot of people really struggling, and we've helped over 200 young people in the community, both individually and wellbeing events within the community. We've had we had a summer plan that we carried out for girls and boys over the summer, and taking them to various outdoor kind of activities and stuff, which was well attended. We've got a social drop-in now, which young people can come in, you know, once a week and just come in through the doors, and you know, that suits some people to come in and just have a social evening as opposed to 6 weeks or whatever a kind of therapy, which we can offer as well. We do wellbeing events as well, and a lot of young men, you know, are kind of struggling during the week, you know, to fill their week, trying to get them away from PlayStations and devices, whereas we're kind of giving them a structure on like a Wednesday or a Thursday or a Friday, you know, to kind of come in, and it's very well attended, and that's the feedback we're getting for young people. That a lot of young people, you know, they're kind of walking about the streets at the weekend and stuff, that want to fill the gaps, and that's the lottery grants allowed us to do that, to actually get them into a kind of activity, and a lot of social connection as well. We've noticed that it's different now. You know, we were talking earlier on about our upbringing and how the social connection was, you know, different. You were out, it was totally different altogether now. So the feedback we get, and that again, keep getting back to, we're running a futsal programme over 4 weeks in a Greenock Sports Centre just now. We've got an outside agency kind of helping us with that, the freedom to do that, and the amount of young people have come up after it and actually spoke to the kind of event organiser who runs the futsal programme, and he says that's restored my faith in young people. The feedback, and the young people came up and actually spoke to me after it and thanked me, civil, polite, and they were just like, it kind of blew his mind, because he works with a lot of people over Scotland, and they say that the boys are great. They're just so appreciative of what's happening here, what you're doing. So
I think that's one of the things that we've managed to do across the charity is be creative and listen to what I suppose find out what we're good at, as opposed to try to chase hundreds of other things. So what we know we're all good at, we're all passionate about football. Some of us, Brian, have got a questionable football team, but we're all passionate about our love of football. No, I was at Capital the day, they're doing really well now actually, Martin.
13 games.
Aye, they're flying. They're doing the community proud, and I got a bacon roll for nothing off them this morning.
There's always someone behind
which was lovely.
Keep them on.
Double bacon for you.
Double bacon.
But it's trying to kind of think, what we're good at, what we're passionate about as a team, what connects there is football, right? So we've used the football therapy, which come on in a second with you, Sam. But also as well, we've tried to use the Wellbeing Cup in the summer, we've used the Winter Wellbeing Cup with young people, and young people come and play football, right? They'll come and play football. There's no stigma there with football. And then what we've sort of done really, really carefully and also as sensitively and strategically is then actually start investing wellbeing conversations into these things that we're done, whether it's going to visit football teams at their training ground and go and visiting young people where they're at. We've done it with the boys teams, we've done it with the girls teams, we've engaged there, and we've used football as that vehicle, and that's something for me that's going to grow now that we've got the partnership with the Greenock Juniors. But that again has been down to the youngster. And when I had originally put the bid in to Hayley, who worked for the National Lottery Community Fund at the time, she was really, really excited about the growth of it, and it was because there was a year of work before Young Start. And that was going round the schools in a kind of youth road show. What's needed? Where's the gaps? What's happening? And unanimously, young people told us that there wasn't an organisation that they felt that they could connect with at the level that I was talking about. There wasn't anything out there like this, where it was just sort of really free, accessible things in your community. And that's not a detract away from the amazing organisations that were there. The feedback I got directly when I went round and spoke to young people. So we've created something that sits really nicely with all the other amazing organisations that are supporting young people. I used to work for one in Bernardo's, and the amount of work they're doing with families and stuff, but what we do is completely different, and it's in our own way. So Young Start's been crucial for that. And I think going on to the one for yourself, Sam, I think it's been massive, and for me a funder that we've connected with really, really well, and we hope to grow that even more so as we have developed and grown as a charity as the Robertson Trust. So they essentially funded your half post, your first half post, where you went for the competitive interview and you done really well and you were offered the opportunity to go for that and take it forward. But essentially at that point, none of this stuff was a reality. It was just thought process, wasn't it? So just a wee summary of that journey at Robertson Trust and how you've then evolved it, because what the whole point was, does this work? Does this type of work, having somebody in a, coordinator role, a lead role or whatever, what does that look like, and how can we develop what we're doing? And since then, what's the journey been like as we approach the final sort of 3 months of that fund?
So it's been actually vital and really crucial to a community, like first and foremost to them, getting somebody in post. I'm just thankful it was me that came in post and got the opportunity to do it. But having that person to come in, coordinate, get stuff running, get to sort of, the feet off the ground and start making an impact within a community. It's been very rewarding. It's been very challenging. There's been a lot of work and there's been a lot of process that have went in to get it where it is now. There's been a lot of stuff that hasn't worked. There's been a lot of change. There's been mistakes made. But through all that, I can always look back and say we've had a foundation that we've sort of put in place at the very start, and we've never come away from that foundation. It's always been grown on it. Some stuff's going to work and some stuff's not, and that's all right. As long as we've got a foundation set, then, we're not going to go far wrong in what we're doing.
Totally agree. I think that's even more, when you talk about yesterday's sort of team meeting, which we have every month, we spent an hour talking about our model.
Yep.
Membership model, tweaking it.
Yep.
What can we do to help more? What can we do to change it? How can we get back to, not go back, but how can we always remember why we started it? So,
and it's always evolving. That's the thing as well. The football that we had at the start is nothing like football we've got just now. You know, but one of the things that I have seen in football, seen in most of the projects that we've got, right enough, whether it's the female service, the young person service, the adult men's service, we have got members that are not going to school, not tipping up for work, not engaging with their families, sheltering, like bringing themselves right out of their community that they've got out with Manon, but they're coming to football every week. They're engaging with us, they're not missing appointments, they are supporting other people in different services as well. You know, what does that say about what we've been able to create? You know, that's been a lifeline for people. And at football, ours is, you know, we've got volunteers and we've got staff and we split them and we just tie in with each individual as we're playing football. You know, instead of saying, you want to come over here, tell us about how your week's been and stuff, that doesn't work. That's not organic. You know, everything we've created has been completely organic with people that's coming through services. Robertson's Trust has been vital in that as well, like getting my feet in the door so that we can create exactly what we've got just now.
Planted the seed.
Definitely.
And I think that was the whole point of it. We got a small grant from them at the point, which was 3 years ago. We got that small grant from them. Now we're able to go into the next sort of level because of our income. And again, that's a good example of an organisation such as the Robertson Trust, such as Young Start, when obviously Hayley kind of trusted us to start venturing into young people, because it's not something that you do lightly. You don't do that. Obviously I've got the experience of it with young people, but you need to make sure like your policies and procedures and qualifications and your safeguarding and child protection and all these measures are there. I think part of that journey as well, which we've not touched on yet, but I will, is the development of the board of trustees since we started it. And the board of trustees that we have now has representation from child protection specialists, from people who have worked within adult services, housing specialists, people from a law background, HR background, financial background, cyber security, people that are working in community development. We've got people who are, you know, clinicians in their field as well in terms of children's mental health. So we really have a vast array of trustees now, which I think is the missing piece of the charity, which if we kind of bring that together in the right way, the synergy is huge, because the volunteers are unbelievable. You've all touched on being a volunteer, and the people that volunteer their time are the heartbeat of our organisation. The staff obviously have progressed all from volunteer roles, and the trustees. So it feels like, you know, these opportunities that people have given us through writing grants or actually going through procurement processes has allowed this sort of flourish over the last 4 years. So for everybody who's been part of it, including our ambassadors, you know, Rhys McEwen, who I interviewed here in the first podcast in this room, and Jamie Darroch, who's came on, including those two. Jamie's just getting involved in what he's doing, Rhys a wee bit more so over the period of time, and then Nicky Lowe coming on board. We're trying to get good people from our community involved to connect with people. So I'm very much hoping that the first 4 years is the platform and foundation for us to build. Like, we're working towards a new strategic plan, 2025 to 2030, and I want that to reflect the amazing work we've done, but also what we're trying to envisage moving forward, and that's the plan. So 4 years of Man On, then I'll come to yourself, Mark. What's been your a personal highlight?
Been a lot in there. I think it's initially just coming down as a volunteer, and then it was your hard work getting recognised like a 4-year contract. I felt a lot of pressure taking over the peer support group for Sam and Peter, but then building on that, and that came really good. Also today, like, just probably my biggest highlight today is when I did come down initially, it was not sure if you're making the right kind of career choice, and then obviously getting different qualifications behind us, getting different training, and I think probably just there in the Christmas time there when we finished up and I get employee of a year. So for me today, that kind of, it's good to reflect back on, do you know what I mean, because probably suffering from imposter syndrome sometimes, and it was good that you're recognised to be that with the team.
Well deserved. I think it's been a really good journey. I'll come on to mine in a second. What about yours, Sam? Just a quick 1 minute.
It's a difficult one because there's been so many, mate, to be fair, but I would probably say my first one main thing where I was like, this has been amazing, was the first Christmas that I organised and stuff for the members coming in on Christmas Day. there's nothing that I can say where I'm like, that's been my biggest overall achievement. I think my biggest thing just now is putting more theory to the practical that I'm already doing, which is going back to uni, well, not going back to uni, going to uni, out of education since I was about 15, 16. So going to university, getting my honours degree, and then just building on that as my career sort of flourishes. So I think that's my sort of main thing, making sure that I'm educated well enough to support my local community as best as I can.
Brilliant. Brian?
I was sitting there racking my brain. I honestly couldn't give you one highlight. I've got so many, and my answer to that is my biggest highlights, if you like, is the feedback I get off from parents and young people, because I know it's genuine. We talk about it all the time. We pat each other on the back all the time, tell each other how good we are and stuff like that. But honestly, every time a parent or a young person gives me feedback and it's good, and whether it be gifts or whatever, and kind of compliments or evaluations, that's a highlight for me, and it happens quite a lot, without blowing my own trumpet, it happens quite a lot. But for me, when I get feedback for myself, for Mark, for Peter and the young person service, that's my highlights, and it happens quite a lot. So
brilliant.
I love it.
I think for me, it's obviously we've spoke to 700 people. Some of them, from day one, are still engaging with us, building that sense of community. We've won, countless awards. We've won various awards. We've went to awards nights where we've either won at national events or we've came close. So all that recognition's amazing. But for me, actually, the main people are the members, right? But the growth in the staff team as individuals and professionals, and their willingness to go the extra mile and buy into the culture, the growth in all yous individually and other people that are not here that we've mentioned, and I'll mention Stacey specifically because she was meant to be sitting over there but she bottled it, but the growth of people who have came in, including Peter, who was up for employee, that's the stuff that gives me the joy, where I see, because I trust you to do the job that you are doing, but when I see you growing and developing, I know that more members are going to get help for that. So whether it's yourself going your HNCs and your SVQs and yourself taking forward and going to uni and stuff like that and getting passes on different years and stuff like that for me is my best bit about actually this team that sort of came together. And a lot of people, if they were going to build this from the start, would have recruited very differently. They would have recruited on the, maybe they would have been doing the route of having just therapists but we're coming at this from a community development lens. So when I'm looking at it from that, I'm looking at it in a different way. So the lived experience model for me, actually working and saving those suicides and connecting with those people, for me is the joy and use of created that by delivering it. So my personal highlights just all coming together and use all developing. So it's been an amazing 4 years. Strange to even think it is 4 years. Sometimes it feels like 40 years because there's been a lot of issues in there. We know that we've directly prevented a high number of suicides, people who are on the edge. We spoke about the time to change, and instead of talking, time to talk, which is important. People talk, but time to change for me is so vital. And when we look at that, it's about changing the systems and having conversations around the systems that's actually meant to be supporting people. How can we help? How can we change it? How can we buffer it? We know we're getting referrals from various places like CAMS and other areas. Can we buffer and support people? So for me, the work's been amazing. The next phase of it needs to be just as amazing, but for me there's more. Let's try and see what we can do to change. So thank you for your time. Thanks for all your work that you have done supporting those 700 people plus in the community, and again thanks to the key people that have made Man On work, whether it be our volunteers. We've all started at the current volunteers, our staff team who are here, others that have left at different points for different reasons, our trustee team, which has obviously been there and gave up their time as well, but our members, and the people that have turned up every week, because if they don't turn up, we don't have a service. This has never worked. So them continually turning up is vital. And again, just a wee shout out for our funders who have supported this. Young Start, National Lottery, hopefully they see the value in preventing young suicides in the community and keep us going for a lot longer than the 2 years. Robertson Trust working through a process just now where we want to really, engage with them and get more support in the community, where we're actually supporting, lots of people, but a focus on young people as well, and where that's coming from. And the education fund and Inverclyde Council, so important that we are around that table in terms of conversations and solutions that, smaller providers, local providers such as Manon are there front and centre to support that, along with the other amazing organisations, because our community aspect and our membership model is going to prevent suicides from happening. It's going to support young people along with the other partners. So thanks to everybody that's made the 4 years happen, and we're looking forward to the next phase. So cheers for listening, and we'll catch you at the next episode. Cheers guys.
Thank you.